GT Cup in Hockenheim.
Opening round of the 1997 FIA International GT Championship, the first FIA GT series in some 27 years. This is Hockenheim, track length of 6.8 kilometers, of course famous for Formula One and also for DTM, an international touring car championship. But this is the big news this weekend. This is Mercedes back in sports car racing for the first time since 1955, and also joining them Alessandro Nannini, who's joined Schneider, Alexander Wurz and Marcel Thiemann. It's a brand new car, first time out. It was only finished 5 days ago, and Mercedes with two cars here hoping for great things against McLaren, against Porsche, against Lotus, and the rest of the 47 cars on the starting grid here at this first German round of the World Series. Big crowd coming along to cheer on Mercedes, perhaps more than Porsche. A lot of them ITC fans frustrated by the loss of their favourite championship, so not many Opel fans here this weekend, and certainly no Alfa Romeo fans. It's all going to be about Mercedes against Porsche, against McLaren, against Lotus. And on the front row of the grid, Bernd Schneider indeed takes pole position from JJ Leto of McLaren. So Mercedes and McLaren set for a classic battle over a 4-hour race. Well, the BPR series is dead. Long live the FIA GT series. Here is row 1, Schneider showing his car with Alexander Wurz, JJ Leto with Steve Soper. Row 2, Jean-Marc Gounon setting out time from Alessandro Nannini. More on Nannini's car in a minute with its unique gear changes. Peter Cox for McLaren and Thomas Bischer, John Nielsen in their McLaren on the next row. Bellum with Andrew Gilbert-Scott in their Gulf McLaren, and then the top factory Porsche, Hans Stuck and Terry Boutsen. Emmanuel Collard for Porsche, Ralph Kellerner's perhaps the future star of Porsche on the next row. Twan Hazeman and Mike Hazeman, son of Twan Hazeman, and Christophe Bouchou filling the next row. Look at all these Porsches. Gianpiero Martini and Pedro Lamy also there for Porsche. Giraix in the first of the Lotuses, and Bernard and Lagos in the Dams Paynors, the car first seen at Sebring. Luca Badour for Lotus, Andy Wallace and James Weaver sharing the Dave Price Paynors. And so on goes this grid, 47 cars. But bad news for one of the Dave Price Paynors cars, the Ford engine cars. David Brabham and Perry McCarthy will not start. They had an engine blow in this morning's warm-up, and there is no time to change it, even if they had a spare. So we're watching out for the Chrysler Vipers. We've just seen two of them going for the picture, and there's the Chamberlain one showing up there. Coroys are also, man who won 70 races in the Marcos LM600 last year in GT2. Also Konrad, Dark Horse, they won at Daytona this year. They won at Sebring this year in the 12 hours. And Claudia Hurtgen there, driving for Rook Porsche. She won the Daytona 24 hours GTS2 category. Kramer GT2 Porsche there for Thomas Saldana and Prince Alfonso d'Orléans Bourbon. And what an incredible field here on this cold but sunny morning here at Hockenheim. And a lot of controversy over this new Mercedes. It's got titanium skid plates, and a lot of teams claiming the car is too low, that it touches the ground if you let the tires down, but the FIA has passed it, and Norbert Haug of Mercedes has protested strongly that the car is legal. Whatever, it's going to make for a great season now. 11 races between now and October, when the series is due to finish in Laguna Seca in California, not far from where the Long Beach IndyCar race took place this evening. Getting heat into the tires, and they knew to this weekend. Michelin, the biggest tire supplier of the weekend. It's on the Porsches, it's on the McLarens, and it's also on those Mercedes. Well, they come round to take the start, and it is Leto and Schneider side by side. They're waiting for the green lights. Beautifully controlled. These drivers well used to this from their ITC training. And the flag goes. Oh, and just look at Leto getting the power down in that BMW Motorsport Fina McLaren. But he can't quite shut out Nannini. It's Nannini, and then Leto, then Schneider. Gounon tucking as well. Oh, the big problem, that's Hans Stuck spinning across the road. He's been punted from behind in the first corner, and he's walloped the barrier. He's got damage to the front of the body. We can see it from here, as, would you believe, JJ Leto gets one over the Mercedes. So it's Leto leading from Schneider, from Nannini, and it's Jean-Marc Gounon in the first of the Gulf cars there, tucked in behind the Mercedes. Then comes Peter Cox in the second of the BMW Motorsport cars. The car's run by Schnitzer under team manager Charlie Lamb. Then it's Andrew Gilbert-Scott and John Nielsen, or it may be the other way around. We just saw them change it. The rest of the field streaming through. Massive GTS-2 entry, something that Bernie Eccleston of the FIA has promised he'll try and encourage now to make sure the privateers aren't put off by the front-running competition here in this GT1 series. And look at this action all the way down. Oh, that is Schneider there. Has he had a problem? He got pushed back a bit then. It looked like there was some sort of problem because a moment ago he was ahead of the car of Gunon, who's now gone ahead of him. The rest of the field getting through clean, well, almost cleanly. One of the Marcuses there falling over itself. And it's JJ Later, the man who won Le Mans for McLaren in 1995. Well, that was the Nannini car. We saw Schneider in trouble, all sorts of trouble. The yellow flags are out, and that is Schneider pulling off there. So at the moment, it is JJ Leto from Alessandro Nannini, from Jean-Marc Gounon, from Peter Cox, from John Nielsen, from Andrew Gilbert-Scott, and then Jan Lammers in the first of these two yellow Lotuses tucked in behind. Bernd Schneider crawling through the corner there in the Mercedes. And here's the Viper Brigade, 1, 2, and 3 of them in amongst the Porsches. 2 of them, the factory Oreca cars, run by Hugh de Schoenack out of Manicourt, and the other car, the Hugh Chamberlain car. Also, Hugh is a team owner's name, very useful. Hugh Chamberlain running this car this year, having given up trying to get these Jaguar XJ220s to be successful. Good job Hugh's been doing as well this year. And in that car, he has 2 very good drivers, in the terms of Hans Hugenholtz and of Nurminen. So there is Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes, the hope of Germany, and all these spectators here today coming to see this car and the car of Nannini. You see they've transferred everything from it. Now let's see what happened. Here was the action at the chicane. Schneider with that yellow flash on the car, the same yellow flash he always had in the DTM. Been pushed back already. He goes over that curb very, very hard. Sparks flying off the car, and that I don't think was the titanium skid plates. That was something more serious. It would suggest there's damage to the underneath of the car or to the rear suspension. See it from a different angle, lower down, and you can see just how heavy the impact was. Bits flying off, and he's heading back for the pits. So it's Leto from Nannini, from Gounon and Cox. Nannini, of course, famous for his win in the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix for Benetton. 37 years old and 3rd in last year's ITC Championship. But Bernd Schneider, who was 2nd in the series to Manuel Reuter, it looks like it's all over. The AMG mechanics checking under the car. And Alexander Wurz there, the man who won Le Mans last year for US Porsche, now moving in with Mercedes. The one thing Alex won't be doing this year is driving at Le Mans again, certainly for Mercedes. They have not entered the race. They're concentrating on these 4-hour FIA GT Championship races. Back to the race anyway, and it is Leto still. From Nannini, from Gounon, those 3 starting to pull away a little bit. Oh, there's a spinner there. That is Bert Plug, Dutchman Bert Plug, spinning one of the 2 factory Dutch-run Marcos LM600s, but he's going to get back into the race, just finding the gear. A bit of over-enthusiasm this early in the race, in this magnificent front-engine GT2 car, which we saw winning so many times last year against the might of Porsche. Well, Hockenheim is the place to start a championship like this, with its high-speed straights, high speed indeed. Bernd Schneider in qualifying yesterday topped 199 miles an hour in this car. Not today though, he is out of the race. Here's number 1, Andrew Gilbert-Scott, who's just joined the Gulf McLaren team. He's Ray Bellham's partner this year. Bellham, of course, world champion last year with James Weaver. Weaver has now moved to IMSA Racing as his prime commitment, but also, as we saw earlier, he is with Paynos in the FIA series. Peter Cox in the 2nd of the BMW Motorsport cars. He's showing that with Roberto de Valia, and they're indeed confirmation after 2 laps with Bichir and Nielsen. Nielsen driving the car at the moment, Bellham and Andrew Gilbert-Scott. Andrew Gilbert-Scott driving that car in 5th and 6th places, and there's only 7.4 seconds covering these top 6 runners in GT1. Here comes the Lotus at Jan Lammers. Oh, here's someone going off already. That's Vido Rosler. Vido Rosler in his GT2 Porsche. He's blown the turbo by the looks of it, by the amount of smoke there. He's going to get out and have a look Normally you can get these cars back to the pits, but it's a smoky journey home. Will he bother? We'll no doubt find out in a moment. Well, back in the pits, Bernd Schneider really having a torrid weekend now, having had pole position. They've tried to get that car back into the race, but it looks like they're going to give up. As our race leader powers through those bottom corners, there's Bernd Schneider. No, it's all over. The car is being retired, and it's all going to rest now with the number 10 car of Alessandro Nannini and Marcel Thiemann. Marcel Thiemann, the man who won the 1996 Monaco Formula 3 Grand Prix. Well, there is Vito Rosler. He is trying to get back. As we said, it could be a smoky trick back. They're passing Olivier Beretta in the first of the Oreca Vipers. More on those in a minute. As we see Hans Stuck getting back into the action now. He's had a new front end put on the car, front bodywork, and he's now playing catch up through the field. He's just gone past Enzo Calderari. He's right on the tail of Bert Plug, who we saw spinning earlier, and just in front of them, the silver, orange and red Repsol Porsche, Kramer Porsche of Thomas Saldana and of Prince Alfonso, Dorian Bourbon. Let's look at Stuckey carving his way through. Now, this is the car, remember, that won Le Mans last year. Oh, and someone's gone off there. That is Enzo Calderari. We just saw him a moment ago. He has gone off at the first corner, and the circuit tractor's called back from its farm work to come and try and pull him back into the track. Will he make it back? We will have to wait and see. Well, there's the Lotus of Fabien Jouin, one of the factory Lotuses with the V8 atmospheric engine. They threw away the turbo just a few weeks ago, deciding it would be uncompetitive with the restrictors they have to use. They got 560 horsepower out of it, and the car only weighs 900 kilos. A big advantage over these McLarens with their long tails, over the Mercedes and over the Porsche GT1s. The race leader, Leto, already lapping back markers. Here he comes, carving through the field, one of the Augusta, Callaway Corvette, Salmo Capelli driving that black car, just pulling out of the slipstream, one of his rivals, and this is really playing thread the needle for the race leader, JJ Leto, in the BMW Motorsport McLaren F1 GTR. Let's have a look at the classification after 10 laps of the Hockenheim FIA GT Series. Well, there's confirmation, no change in the top 6, but that gap between first and sixth widening now to nearly 20 seconds. We're going to take a short break. Join us in a moment. Hockenheim for round 1 of the FIA World GT Championship. We're watching at the moment our race leader here in the FINA McLaren about to do the unthinkable. He is about to lap Hans Stuck in the factory Porsche GT1 after just 20 laps. Stuck having spun the car into the wall on the first corner after a tap from behind. He's been playing catch-up, but it's not enough to keep the McLaren of JJ Leto, a hard charger, off his tail. Leto, the man who won Le Mans, the man who won Suzuka for McLaren in a spectacular drive with Maurice Sala and Ray Bellum 2 years ago, and really still looking for another great sports car victory. Could this be the weekend? Could this be the one where the new FIA era starts off in GT sports car racing? Someone's got to be the first to win, and this could well be the car to do it. The new long-tail McLaren 97 spec, it's the answer to the Porsche GT1, and look what an answer it's giving him at the moment. Rear engine, 6-litre BMW V12, about 600 horsepower with the FIA restrictors. Weighs in at 950 kilos, and there's 7 of these cars racing. 2 of these BMW Motorsport cars under Schnitzer, 1 BBA, 1 MRV, and 3 Gulf, one of which is stopping at the moment. This is Jean-Marc Gounon coming in for the first of the routine pit stops, and he will hand over to his teammate with the bright orange helmet, Pierre-Henri Raffanel. Well, Michael Caine's GTC Motorsport crew jumping on the car. Great job as always. They gave Ray Bellum and James Weaver the World Championship this last year, and they're going to try and do the same this year for one of these 3 Gulf cars. Peter Cox moving up into 3rd because of Gounon's pit stop. Here passing the Andy Wallace, Dave Price Racing Paynos. Spectacular cars these Paynos is. They got front-engined Roush Ford Mustang engines. In comes Nannini. Man who's in second place, he stays in the car. And Nannini, incidentally, in this Mercedes, 600 horsepower also, has 2 gear levers. They're both push levers. He pushes the larger one to change up and the smaller one to change down. This is because, of course, he damaged his hand so badly in a helicopter crash in 1992. Oh, and off goes Giraix in his MVR McLaren, one of last year's McLarens, which he's bought and is running by his German team. While he's in there, Porsche making their pit stop. This is the Porsche AG entry, and Norbert Singer there in the middle of the picture with the silver hair. The man overseeing that pit stop stuck out, and Boutsen in. There's a problem for Mercedes. They're still in the pits. The car will not restart, and AMG boss Hans-Werner Albrecht will not be at all happy about this. AMG have worked so hard over the last few weeks to get this car in the running. They're Stucky, just making sure Boutsen's in all right. Refueling finished, they can then start changing wheels and looking at other bits of the car, but there's the Mercedes still. All sorts of problems for Mercedes this weekend, and there is Albrecht indeed, looking extremely fed up about the whole thing. He's been used to winning ITC races. This is not what the master plan was for GT. Leader later in the pits, and Steve Soper taking over from JJ. There's JJ, his distinctive helmet. Steve Soper goes out. Still probably Britain's top touring car driver. He's been drafted into the Schnitzer BMW Motorsport team this year. He'll be doing the full season of GT racing after 2 or 3 races last year, and here is that silver star. Such a successful weekend in Australia for Mercedes with McLaren when they won the Australian Grand Prix, but now Mercedes not having the same joy here at Hockenheim at home. Well, Bernd Schneider's got in the car, we note there, so obviously AMG has decided to do some testing while they're still here. They're going to get the car fixed. I know they've lost a lot of places, and Bernd Schneider taking it over. Well, current leader Peter Cox comes in, he makes a stop, and Roberto Ravaglia, Italian touring car champion many, many times for BMW. Also seen in Britain last year, occasionally for BMW, before they withdrew from the British Touring Car Championship. And Ravaglia also saying he's looking forward to his season in the FIA Series. And well, he might at the moment. The car is currently well up the order. Hans Hugenholtz in the Chamberlain Viper taking to the escape road. Just a little bit too late on the brakes there, following one of the Gulf McLarens. No harm done. Just takes a short detour and rejoins the track. Well, here is the crowd looking to see what's happening. And they're looking out for Claudia Herc, and here she is in the number 56, the silver Porsche there, the Rook Porsche. She is leading GT2 at the moment. She's ahead of those Vipers. She won the Daytona 24 Hours GTS-2 category this year at her first ever attempt in a sports car race. What a fine drive by the German lady. There's GT2 classification. It is indeed Hertgen with Eichmann and Amarin. Then 1, 2 Vipers, and then Michel Ligenet's Porsche. Again, there is the First Lady. She's in the car. Oh, there's a problem there for Roberto Ravaglia. He is only 9 minutes out of the pits, and the gearbox has failed on the second of the BMW Motorsport McLarens. So it's fallen apart for Mercedes. Is it starting to fall apart for BMW on their first ever official season of GT racing? That's Maurizio Sala. He's in trouble as well. He's in the GBF Lotus. This is one of the cars run by the Benetton team, and Sala has all sorts of problems there. It looks like he might be out of fuel. Well, Steve Soper continuing to lead after all the round of pit stops, and this is lap 34, and you can see some changes there. It's Soper leading now from Andrew Gilbert-Scott, who's doing a double shift. Then John Nielsen has handed over to Thomas Boucher. Gunnar Raffanel car, Collard von Gartzen car, the Martini Pescatori car. Those Porsches coming up the order of course, having lost Peter Cox and Roberto Rivallia's McLaren. Well, still Soper leads. And this is a Viper attack. Well, after Hurtgen goes into the pits early, the GT2 leaders, Olivier Beretta and Tommy Archer, in the two Oreca Vipers, are now in GT2, of course, after being in GT1 in 1996. They found that the opposition was just getting too high-tech. They wanted to run these American muscle cars. And so Han Chan, who's the boss of Chrysler Europe's motorsport program, took the executive decision to move these cars into GT2, and what a fine performance they're getting out of them today. They are now leading the category with a 1-2. Well, this is Uwe Alzen, another refugee from German touring car racing. He's in the Konrad Porsche GT2, and by the looks of it, his bottom front suspension is broken. But these Porsches you can drive around the circuit on 3 wheels, just as you can the McLarens, and he is going to attempt to make it back to the pits. In fact, he does. Well, Steve Soper continuing to lead the race for McLaren. He's now got 29 seconds over Andrew Gilbert-Scott in second place for Gulf McLaren, and Thomas Bischer, who's taken the reins of the car he shares with John Nielsen. He and John, of course, 1995 BPR world champions. There's confirmation. Pierre-Henri Raffanel in the fourth of the Gulf McLarens, third of the Gulf McLarens in fourth place, and then the 2 Porsches of Collard. As Gilbert-Scott comes in after a double shift to hand over to Ray Bellum. Good drive by the Englishman who spent most of the last decade racing in Japan. Became very much Andrew San over there. And Ray specifically requested him back in the team. Gulf wanted an English driver for Ray. Very personable young man. Very famous family. Grandfather was Gilbert-Scott, the architect. And now he's trying to be the architect for victory for Gulf McLaren this year. Well, a lot of activity in the pits, a lot of running around. Everyone checking tyres, making sure they're going to last. Gilbert-Scott rejoins at the same time. Raffanel leaves the pits. He is staying in after a double shift, or staying in for a double shift. He's been in the car for nearly an hour. He's going to do a second out, and right behind them comes Steve Soper. So Ray Bellum in that car now, and taking it over from Andrew Gilbert-Scott. There were the world champions, #1, Ray Bellum, and look at Steve Soper. He is on a charge. He's got heat in the tyres. He's got a little less fuel than them now. He's been out for longer, and through he goes, or trying to go. Bellum's seen him in his mirrors. He won't block him because this is a long race. It's a 4-hour race, and Bellum knows that you can win these races in the pits rather than banging door handles on the track. Soper neatly goes past Ray, and he's trying to get past Thomas Saldana in the Repsol Porsche there. Does it very nicely, very neat. Ray Bellum follows through. These cars getting up to 190 miles an hour on this long straight down to the second of the Hockenheim chicanes, and just ahead of them at the moment still Pierre-Henri Raffanel staying in for that double shift. Jean-Marc Gounon will take over for him at the final stop. Oh, there's a big spinner there. That is Riccitelli. Oh, it's a big, big accident right in front of the race leaders. Oh, and he nearly bounces back straight into the path of Pierre-Henri Raffanel and our race leader. Well, that was an enormous accident. And was it something to do with that rear wheel? It's very, very awry. Riccitelli at the wheel of the car. Let's have a look at it again in slow motion to see if we can see exactly what happened. Well, there we are. Yes, you can see the wheel was already hanging off. It just turned the car sharp left, and just look at those McLarens braking up, braking under the, as they see this huge impact in front of them. Brake lights on big swerve by Raffanelli. Thinks the car's going to keep coming back. Soper almost involved. Other people taking to the grass just to make sure they're not going to get involved in that. Well, Mercedes back in the race now, and there's Bernd Schneider on board the car. The report coming from AMG, they're going to do further testing now, and they're just ahead of the Marlboro Porsche of Emanuele Collard and Jürgen von Gartzen, the JB racing car run by Jean-Pierre Jabouille, having turned his attention from Renault to Peugeot and now to a privateer Porsche, run out of his French base. Well, he's climbing all over the back of Bernd Schneider, so very useful mileages. Schneider can test the Mercedes up against cars like this. He's not fighting for position, but he knows he can get a lot of race data under racing conditions, and no doubt they'll be putting other members of the team in. Nannini's had his stint, maybe Alexander Wurz will take over after this. Well, Richard Telly's very, very second-hand Porsche 911 GT2 is pulled out of the way under yellow flags. There won't be a full course yellow though. Very efficient Hockenheim marshals get the car out. As Leader Soper makes a pit stop, he stays in the car. He's doing a double shift as well. 2 hours of the race almost up now. And at 52 laps, the standings are Steve Soper leading from Pierre-Henri Raffanel, from Ray Bellum, from Thomas Boucher. And would you believe Terry Boutsen, who's almost... but he is up into 5th place now. He's 1 lap down, but he's up into 5th place. A great comeback drive. And Emanuele Collard has just handed over to Jürgen von Gartzen. And they, at this moment, are 2 laps down. After the break, see how the next part of the race went. Eurosport at Hockenheim on lap 54 of today's FIA Grand Touring Championship opening round. And Steve Soper still leading from the 3 Golf McLarens of Pierre-Henri Raffanel, Ray Bellum and Thomas Boucher. So the Mercedes challenge really fading. We lost both Mercedes from the front running. We've lost Peter Cox's and Roberto Evalia's, the BMW Motorsport McLaren, and the Lotuses are in all sorts of disarray. Big problems for all those cars. And Steve Soper really putting in a very, very fine drive with JJ Lehto. JJ Lehto, incidentally, has started this race with a severe dose of German measles. He's caught it from his daughter, and JJ had to get a doctor's certificate this morning to be able to start the race. Well, here is the second place man, Jean-Marc Gounon and Pierre-Henri Raffanel's car, the Golf McLaren, sporting number 3. Raffanel at the wheel at the moment, looking for that elusive victory. He has not yet had a win in GT racing in 3 years, but he's had 2 poles and 2 seconds last year. Ray Bellum in the number 1 car going through the picture now, and Ray, 1996 BPR world champion with 4 wins, and Andrew Gilbert-Scott hoping to join Ray on the winner's podium before very long. Might be today. Let's see how the race unfolds. Third of the Gulf, Davidoff trio. Davidoff sponsorship coming from Thomas Boucher and from John Nielsen, joining forces with Gulf this year. There is the Davidoff identification on the side. German anti-tobacco laws forbid it saying, and it says enjoy a day off. Well, that's Thomas Boucher at the moment going through the picture at the wheel of the 3rd Gulf car. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 for McLaren at the moment, and then a whole string of Porsches. The crowd's watching all the action, and next off is Andy Wallace. Andy Wallace in the Paynos has gone off. It seems like they've been having some brake problems. So Andy maybe just stopping short of that tyre wall. He's in the gap there, in the fire gap. And the marshals, the ever-efficient marshals, coming to try and get him back into the race. They'll tow him out with the tractor. Here it comes, and try and get Andy, winner of this year's Daytona 24 Hours and runner-up at the Sebring 12 Hours, back into the race. Well, a great performance going on elsewhere on the track by the 2 Chrysler Vipers. These 8-litre V10 American muscle cars. They got 450 horsepower and they weigh 900 kilograms. the two factory cars run by Oreca out of France and one by Chamberlain. And just look at this, Philippe Gache at the moment leading, and in the other car, Justin Bell, the second car. What a great drive by Justin Bell, son of Derek Bell. He has been booked for just one race at the moment. Presumably, depending on the results of this race, he'll be offered more drives this season. He has not put a foot wrong yet. And Tommy Archer, who's sharing this car, is contracted to drive in the GT Series up to and including Le Mans. So obviously Chrysler hedging their bets at the moment, but they seem to have got the right team at the moment. There's confirmation. Philippe Gache, number 1. Justin Bell, number 2 at the moment. They've moved now 1 lap ahead of the Rook Porsche of Hertgen, Eichmann and Nie Amorin, then the Zadra Porsche, then the Kramer Porsche there of D'Orléans Saldana, and then Hugenholtz and Nurminen in the third of the Chrysler Vipers, run by Chamberlain Engineering out of Buntingford in Hertfordshire. Problem though for Lotus again. This looks like the car of, it is Jean-Denis Deletraz. It's one of the factory cars. He's saying something's broken. Not quite sure what from his gesticulation. Well, here's the Mercedes now. It's now in the hands of Marcel Thiemann. So Marcel Thiemann, third of the 4 factory drivers to drive this car today. He's the 96 Monaco winner. He's 23 years old. Oh, and a big off there for Jürgen von Gartzen in the number 17 Porsche. He spins out, but he's going to rejoin, by the looks of it, by using his reverse gear. Or at least that'll prove to the stewards the car has a reverse gear, and they will probably consider that's the most wise thing to do in these circumstances. It's way off the track. I don't know how he arrived there. So this is the Jean-Pierre Jabouille run car, one of the customer Porsche GT1s, and he rejoins right in front of the pack. Dear oh dear. That is Raffanel. He's right in front of, making him all go the long way round. This is in the amphitheatre section of the Hockenheim ring. Of course, using the full Grand Prix circuit. Big circuit, 6.8 kilometers. Oh, and this is James Weaver now having a brake problem in the Paynos. We saw Andy Wallace going off earlier. The car was recovered, but it's back now and having a little bit more trouble. Well, great midfield action here between Terry Boutsen, still in the Porsche, and behind him, Yannick Dalmas in the Rook Racing Porsche, the silver one he's sharing with Ralph Kellener's. Dalmas, of course, winner at Sebring 12 Hours, first time out in America. And tucked in right behind them, Jean-Marc Gounon, just looking for an opportunity to lap him in the second place Gulf McLaren. He knows they're fighting for position though, and he's not going to take any risks. Well, Konrad GT2 stop, and Uwe Alzen will take over this car. They got that front wheel fixed, they got back in the race. And the talented Uwe Alzen, touring car racer extraordinaire, will take it over from Franz Konrad. And just look at this action shot of the leading Viper. Olivier Beretta now at the wheel of it. Tommy Archer, incidentally, not in this car. He's sharing the other car with Justin Bell. Absolutely stunning pictures from Hockenheim today in the sun. And one has to say that this Viper is really what GT racing is all about. Well, after 81 laps of this 4-hour race, 2 hours, 53 minutes, we're almost on the 3-hour point. Leto, Soper still leading from Gounon, Raffanel, and Bischer and Nielsen. So we see him at this precise moment to have lost Bellerman, Andrew Gilbert Scott, but pit stops will change that in a moment, and they will be back into the top 4 as they settle themselves out after those pit stops. Well, problems for the Chamberlain Viper. It's overheating in the pits. Hugh Chamberlain's having a quick look. Hans Hugenholtz bringing the car in. showing it of Juri Nurminen. So one down at the moment, but still two to go, and here they are. Well, there's one of them certainly. That is Justin Bell, in fact, we just saw there at the wheel. And Gounon about to lap Bichir. So Jean-Marc Gounon trying to put his own teammate down a lap. And he goes through, and Terry Boutsen now looking to do the same. Boutsen, in fact, it was 2 laps down, and if he can get past Bichir, he will have certainly unlapped himself, but he will move into 4th place and then try and spend the last hour taking that lap back from the Bichir-Nielsen car to see if they can get the Porsche onto that last podium place in 3rd. Jean-Marc Gounon, no wins last year in those fabulous Ferrari drives of his, but 6 pole positions. He had a 2nd and a 3rd. Those results were good enough to finish him 5th in the championship with his Ferrari teammates Eric Bernard and Paul Belmondo. And you've probably noticed no Ferraris here this weekend. What a shame. The F40s have finally been pensioned off. Beautiful, beautiful cars, but no longer competitive against these high-tech Porsches, McLarens and Mercedes. Terry Boutsen still clawing his way back up the order. Bichir having been passed by Jean-Marc Gounon. Right at this point. Diving down into the first chicane, he looks inside. He doesn't quite do it. Still just holding off for a moment. And Bichir holding up Gounon enough to let Terry Boutsen come closer and closer. Boutsen and Stuck, of course, last year winning Le Mans. They won at Brands Hatch, they won at Spa. And the car was given to Collard and Kalleners to race in Zhuhai in China, and they won there. Everyone said the Porsche GT1 was going to destroy GT racing, but look, this car at the moment in 4th place. Oh, and there's Thomas Bichir being monstered now by Boutsen. So Gounon's gone through. Bichir holding his line quite correctly. Why should he go offline onto the marbles? And Boutsen only surely a matter of time in the turbo-powered 3.2 litre flat 6 bi-turbo Porsche. Goes powering through, just using that power to punch his way past the BMW V12 atmospheric car. He's taken a lap back from Bichir, but he is still in 4th place, while Bichir is in 3rd. So there's the race order. Disregard Stuck and Boutsen there, because Bichir and Nielsen still in 3rd. Back in a moment. Hour of today's Hockenheim opening round of the FIA GT Championship. We're looking at the final pit stop for GT2 leader Olivier Beretta, but there is Uwe Alzen. He's off the track. He has gone off again. Is it a repeat of that front suspension collapse? Alzen is not the sort of guy to put cars into walls. Something surely has taken him off. So Konrad Porsche having a torrid time after their Sebring 12 hours victory. But there's the painters of Andy Wallace on board, being monstered by Claudia Hertgen. There she is, in 3rd at the moment. And there is the replay. Well, there appears to be no steering on that car, and it looks like the same thing's happened again. Uwe Alzen quite unhurt. It was a fairly gentle bump into the tyre wall, but this time surely he's not going to get the car back. He's only gone past the pits, and he would have about 6.6 kilometers ahead of him if he tries to drive around the circuit. I think at this stage of the race, they'll probably say that's enough. If it happens again, maybe he'll hurt himself. Well, final pit stops coming up now, and Jean-Marc Gounon in the Golf car in second place, stays in the car. GTC Motorsport getting the car refueled. Are they going to change wheels or not? Change tyres? No, they don't. They get the car straight back out. As leader, Steve Soper hands over to JJ Leto. So JJ Leto, complete with his German measles here in Germany, taking over the car for the final shift. This is the victory that BMW Motorsport has surely been longing for. The McLarens have been BMW powered. They've been racing for the last 2 years. BMW came to McLaren and Silverstone last year. They tried, but they were unable to pull off the victories. All sorts of teething problems. Now being run by Schnitzer instead of Bigatsi's last year. They seem to have got everything just right, and they're leading the cream of world GT cars. Johann Stuck is waiting for his final stop. He's going to be taking over the Porsche GT1, the factory car, from Terry Boutsen. Boutsen has done such a good job with Stuckey in coming back from 45th place up into 4th. The eyes have it. Gets the radio message, he's coming in, and Boutsen is already in pit lane as perhaps the world's finest GT racer waits to take over. So the day not wasted for the Weissach Porsche team. Norbert Singer and his crew doing a great job, having got the car back into the race after that first lap accident. And now into 4th place behind a trio of McLarens. They've beaten Mercedes, which is probably what they wanted to do most. Fuel goes in. Car's jacked up, so it's going to be a quick tyre change. And get it back into the race. Meanwhile, the Mercedes is still thundering round. Nannini and Thiemann might have started in it, but Schneider has also driven it on the way. GT2 still led by Beretta, from Justin Bell and Tommy Archer, from Claudio Hurtgen. And one has to say, a really great drive by Justin. I'm sure Derek is proud of him today. 94 laps gone, and just 23 minutes of the race left. All the major pit stops over now, except this one. Mercedes back in for their final refueling, and it's Alexander Wurz now who's getting in. So the 4 for the drivers. Alexander Wurz, the 96 Le Mans winner, 4 years Porsche, and of course the 23-year-old Austrian is now Benetton's Formula 1 test driver. Jumping into this Mercedes, the latest of a long line of silver arrows. Way down the order, but Hans-Werner Alfrecht obviously finding this is an extremely useful test session. They can probably learn more today than they could in a fortnight of testing away from race conditions. Well, race going into its last moments now, and it's still JJ Leto leading the field for BMW Motorsport in that beautiful 97 spec long-tailed McLaren. He and Steve Soper having driven absolutely faultlessly today, not put a foot wrong, doing exactly what Schnitzer Motorsport have asked of them. There again, that leading Chrysler Viper. What a good job Chrysler's done as well. 1-2 in the GT2 category. That was the right move, absolutely, to move from GT1. And again, this beautiful high-speed, slow-motion camera capturing all the best of the action at the second of the Hockenheim chicanes. There's the second place man, Jean-Marc Gounon. And a long way back, the Mercedes, oh, just bumping rudely there into Prince Alfonso. Out of the way, says Wirtz, the young Austrian upstart. Here comes the Viper. Beretta on board, thundering down. Wonderful sounding 8-litre V10 Chrysler engine. They can now make the most of the reduction in power from GT1 by making the car ultralight. Can go down to under 900 kilos. And they've really turned up trumps of this car. 1 and 2 on its first GT outing. Konrad still in there. JJ Leto powering fast again. Justin Bell, that's there, going for the picture. Head of the Rook Porsche GT1, still our race leader. Just reeling off those laps, trying to keep out of trouble. They're okay for fuel, they're okay for tyres. At the moment they have a 1.5 minute lead over Jean-Marc Gounon, Pierre-Henri Raffanel, and a full lap over John Nielsen and Thomas Bischer. This series, they're becoming increasingly professional. Even in this first race, you've got professional drivers now. And Thomas Bischer, who's a Cologne banker by trade. So really a true amateur weekend driver, doing a great job to be sharing the third place car today against such distinguished company as these professionals who are way ahead and way behind him. Paynol's still running, Weaver and Wallace. He's also getting some useful mileage, although the car's a little bit down the order after those unscheduled excursions. Jean-Marc Gounon on board for this final shift in the second place car. Gap not changing between him and race leader JJ Leto. Picking his way through two of last year's McLarens. One of them is the BBA Motorsport car, just ahead of him of French roof tile king Jean-Luc Laharbière. Just ahead of him, the car of Gert Roush, which is back on the track after its earlier excursion. We're behind the three McLarens up front. This is the second of them, R4, 5, in fact 6 Porsche and 911 GT1s, these customer cars. On sale at almost $1 million each, almost the same price as the McLarens. And then the leading GT2 car, the car of Olivier Beretta and Philippe Gache, the Chrysler Viper, up into 10th place overall. Very good effort. Well, McLaren obviously having got over their wheel throwing problems of last year. Been no such incidents in this race, 4-hour race, and the plan at the moment is that the remainder of the races this year are likely to be reduced to 3 hours. So this could be the only 4-hour race we see. It has yet to be confirmed, but that apparently is what the FIA is considering. One thing they won't need to consider at the moment is equalising performance, because Hockenheim has proved that McLaren, Porsche and Mercedes are all absolutely spot on the place. And if anyone's suffering at the moment, it's Lotus, who have a lot of work to do. It's a stunning car. And George Howard, Chappell and Ian Foley down at Hethel in Lotus have done a great job. In fact, it was the first car to be presented way back in November last year. The regulations then were altered, suddenly penalising them after a lot of development work on the V8 twin-turbo engine, and they suddenly dropped it a few weeks ago in favour of a Tony Rudd-designed atmospheric V8. 6-litre, 560 horsepower, but they say more's coming. While the Italian side of Lotus, GBF Benetton, have stayed with their 3.5-litre turbo, having already entered into a contract with an Italian engine builder for the whole year. It was too difficult to get out and all too late this year. Where Lotus could score is they're only 900 kilos, and once they get this V8 developed, they should be up running with the Porsches, the McLarens and Mercedes. Well, it's nearly all over bar the shouting now, and everyone, of course, will be looking forward to the next race, which is Silverstone on May the 11th. These cars coming to Britain, that will be a sight on Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Really given a chance to show their legs this weekend at Hockenheim on this fastest of all the circuits they're likely to race on this year. And still everyone talking about that 324 kilometre per hour top speed that Schneider did in qualifying yesterday. The translation of that, 199.87 miles per hour, just inches short of the magic 200. Checkered flags out, and JJ Lehto takes victory in BMW Motorsport's opening race of the 1997 FIA GT Championship. He and Steve Soper must be very proud of themselves, the work they've done this weekend with Schnitzer under Charlie Lamb, and for BMW Motorsport, and of course for McLaren, who built this car. This is the car Gordon Murray designed as a super road car, and little did he dream when he first designed it that customers would demand they were to race it. And here it is, winning against the might of the world's sports car manufacturers. Well, confirmation of the result then. GT1 first. JJ Lehto, Steve Soper, a great victory for them by 1 minute and 33 seconds from Pichot and Nielsen a lap down, Stuck and Boutsen a lap down. They couldn't quite catch up with the second of the Gulf McLarens, Kelleners and Dalmas. And there is coming in 13th place Nannini, Thiemann, and of course Schneider and Wirtz on board. For GT2, a similarly stunning performance by the two Chrysler Vipers, coming in 1 and 2. And all credit to Olivier Beretta, Philippe Gache, Justin Bell and Tommy Archer for a copybook run by those two cars, certainly in GT2, matching the performance of Lehto and Soper in GT1. They finished a lap clear of the Rook Porsche GT2 of Claudia Herkmann, Bruno Eichmann and Portugal's Ni Amorim. There they are, and 3 laps ahead of the privateer Porsche of Zaudra, Brand and Madanelli. Well, that ends our coverage of the opening round of the FIA GT Championship. This has been Mark Cole. Hope you've enjoyed our presentation. We look forward to a lot more of these this year, and of course we will also be live this year at the Le Mans 24 Hours. So until next time, keep watching Eurosport. See you soon.
The GT Cup in Hockenheim.